Good morning, Americans. This is your favorite alien on the morning of Friday, January 12th, 2024, sitting in for Paul Harvey. Stand by for the rest of the story. Well, today's story is a continuation of the story that was posted earlier today by my pal in YouTube, Mr. Brad Dyson. And he posted the story of Nicholas Trist. What a guy. He didn't mention it, but in this commentary that I'm doing as his commentary of Paul Harvey's commentary of the rest of the story, Nicholas Trist could be in some ways considered today's version of Donald J. Trump. And if you want to listen to Paul Harvey's story or also Mr. Brad's YouTube channel, Brad Dyson, and the story that he did on did the right things the wrong way. Okay? And that's what Donald J. Trump has done. Some right things, but definitely in the awful wrong way. Mr. Nicholas Dyson was born in 1800, and then he moved into Virginia with his family. And his family had relations with President Jefferson. So he was with President Jefferson in his early age. His family used to visit Mr. Jefferson a lot. And he also became a kind of a student or ward of Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson taught him the law, and he was a good disciple. And he got enamored with Thomas Jefferson's granddaughter, Virginia Randolph. Jefferson Randolph, that is. They had a relationship that started in 1816, and they got married in 1824. And during that time, he was in business with Mr. Jefferson. In fact, he was like the executor of Monticello in Mr. Jefferson's later years. They got married in 1824, and he became full executor of Monticello after Mr. Jefferson's death in 1826, the 50th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. But he wasn't exactly a good handler because Monticello went into decline big time. And by the time of 1869, Monticello, all the land was sold, mostly, except for the house, I guess. And the house was in so bad repair that you had cows inside the kitchen. Yeah. Oh, boy, Mr. Dyson forgot about that part. But anyway, yeah. He loves Monticello, and I do too. I've been there a few times, and it's a nice place. But it's due to the foundation that was established in 1870, and it took them almost 60 years to get the house where it was until they reopened it in the 1920s. The Monticello that you know today is due to them. They bought back most of the land and made it as close as possible to the original Monticello. But Nicholas Trist is a name that you don't see very much in the history books unless you look at the footnotes. He had a good political career starting, and he got appointed to clerk of the State Department, I believe it was, in 1830 by Andrew Jackson. Something came up, and he got fired. And for the next 15 years, he went here, he went there. But he had something that, he got appointed to a different post where he was working with Andrew Jackson. He went to Havana, learned Spanish, because Cuba, that was a Spanish territory at the time. Well, in 1848 or 1847, James K. Polk needed somebody to negotiate the treaty with Mexico to end the war. So he picked Mr. Nicholas Trist because he had, even though he had that bad mark with President Andrew Jackson, he picked him to head the negotiations down in Mexico. Mr. Dyson, if you listen to his story, published today under his channel, you can get, he had the Paul Harvey story, and then he had his rest of the story. And he explains about Mr. Trist. Okay, well, Mr. Trist negotiated his treaty, not the one that Mr. James K. Polk had given him. Oh boy, Mr. Polk found that out, and he was blown the gasket over there, fired him on the spot, and Mr. Nicholas Trist sent him back a letter. I mean, a letter, people. You consider a letter, you know, dear blah 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 blah. Signed, yeah, right, short and sweet. Mr. Nicholas Trist sent him a letter 65 pages long. That must have irked Mr. Polk having to read that 65 pages of letter. Ooh, if he did it at all, or he had somebody else read it and give him the synopsis, probably. Anyway, President Polk wanted conditions on that treaty. If Mexico surrenders Baja California, we'll pay them $29 million plus Baja California. Well, if they don't, we'll pay them $32 million, I believe it was. $32 million or something like that. And, we'll get the treaty. Mr. Trist, Nicholas Trist, he had other things. So he started negotiating with the Mexicans, unbeknown to them that he wasn't part of the U.S. government anymore. And he negotiated and told them, hey, here's the thing. We will take Arizona, New Mexico, California, Utah, Colorado, and parts of Wyoming there, and we'll give you $15 million. Well, he knew that if he tried to go for Baja California, that would be Santa Ana. I wouldn't want to accept that. No, and no. And the Mexican government wouldn't swallow that either. And there's nothing good about Baja California. You ever been to Baja California? Oh, boy. Anyway, other than Cabo San Lucas? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, the Mexicans accepted, and I can imagine Mr. James K. Polk was like Fred Sanford over there saying, and all kinds of things, and hitting places and breaking stuff. Bing, bang, bing, 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 bing. Is that what the sad guy did? He must have been really up there, poor Mr. Polk. Anyway, Mr. Trist did something that today's Republicans do. He leaked the treaty. So the American public was reading all this parts of the treaty before it got up. Yeah. Well, when they got to the U.S. Senate, because of the public acclamation for this treaty, they passed it, and nothing flat. And, Mr. Polk had to eat crow and said, yeah, I did this, and we signed it. Because he couldn't admit that wasn't his treaty. Something like that happened in the Panama Canal Treaty of 1977 with Sol Linowitz and Ellsworth Bunker, and Carter had to, because he gave up the canal, but he wasn't, I don't think he was expecting that kind of treaty when he got it back from Sol Linowitz. He appointed him because After Mr. Ford's defeat in 1976, he wanted his own guy running the Canal Treaty instead of Ellsworth Bunker, who was an old guy, 90-some years old at the time. Anyway, well, they got that treaty the same way, and it was the same way as Mr. Nicholas Trist Treaty of 1848. U.S. gave up the canal zone. The Senate was growling at it, but approved it 67-32. Well, it's the same way with the Senate over there that handily approved that treaty in 1848, and James K. Polk had to eat crow and approve the treaty and say nothing about it because it wasn't his treaty. But this is the way that Mr. Dyson has explained it in his thing, that Nicholas Trist was like Donald J. Trump, did the right things in the wrong way. And that's what he's doing even today. He's got some bright ideas, but he's going about it the wrong way. Like I told Mr. Dyson, both Trump and Mr. Nicholas Trist were U.S. citizens and believed that they were above the USA. And that's not the truth. As I told him when I wrote him a comment back on the story, I said, he forgot one of the things his mentor, Thomas Jefferson, had wrote to President Madison after the approval of the Constitution of the United States in 1788, which was, a half a loaf is better than no loaf at all. Tells you that neither one of the founding fathers liked the U.S. Constitution. They tolerated it, but they didn't like it. And with President Jefferson's comment, what he meant was a half a loaf. There's room to fix this. You never did fix it. And that half a loaf today, Americans, is not even a heel of the bread. The Constitution is forever gone. That's what he was trying to tell them. And people like Nicholas Trist and Donald J. Trump are partly responsible for the destruction of the U.S. Constitution. They violated it in every way, nick and cranny, when they did their stuff. Sure, you got the states back, but would you rather have Baja California, people? Really? Let me know. Write me or write Mr. Bride Dyson at his channel and let us know if you would rather have Baja California as a state instead of the treaty that was signed by Nicholas Trist. Well, Nicholas Trist, like I said, he got fired. He spent the rest of his time working as a clerk at a railroad company for $112.50. There was a senator from Virginia, I forget what his name was, who in 1871 started a bill to pay back Mr. Trist for negotiating the treaty. He wanted to pay him back $14,000, and the Congress eventually, after wrangling for a couple of months, I remind you, this is the Radical Republican Congress of 1871. Woo! Well, they passed it and gave him the $14,000 plus. He died 3 years later, along with the senator that had a heart attack. Anyway, today, there is a statue to the senator in Virginia, and Nicholas Trist is forever relegated to obscurity. Even though he was married to the granddaughter of Thomas Jefferson, I think it was Virginia Randolph, Jefferson Randolph there. And it's still, a lot of people still are searching. It's not confirmed yet, but they say that she was a descendant because of Randolph, of Pocahontas from Virginia. Was she? That would be interesting, wouldn't it? Anyway, this is your favorite alien sitting in for Paul Harvey, congratulating Mr. Brad Dyson on the best story I've seen in a long time. Good. And as he says, Mr. Harvey would say right now, good day.